It's Learn Ubuntu Live, presented by learnubuntu.org, with your host, Tom Judge.
Yes, welcome to the Green Room. Today we're going to have a live presentation on browsers and web servers. You may think, wait a minute, I'm taking this course on the internet, why do I have to learn about a browser? Well, the truth is that we want you to know about a browser the way a web developer may know about the extra tools and features of the browser. So in this chapter of this course, we spend a bit more explaining all the features of the Firefox browser. And then later on in the course, we're going to show you how to interface the Firefox browser with the Emacs editor to make it easy for you to go back and forth between the two applications as you develop your websites. We're going to start this presentation now on an introduction to browsers and web servers. Over the course of the Internet's evolution, different browsers have been formed. We know that Tim Berners-Lee made the first HTML browser, but over time, as a developer, you have to keep in mind that there's multiple browsers that you can use, such as Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, Chromium, which is becoming ever more popular, and Opera. In this course, we focus mainly on the Firefox browser. That is because it is installed by Ubuntu by default. And it's a good browser. I like it. I have it on all my devices, and I sync my bookmarks between them all. It's great. But it's not the only browser in town. Here's a little slide showing us the different types of browsers that we have. We have the Google Chromium browser, which has taken a lot of popularity lately, especially with all the Android products and the Google Chrome project, their cloud project. The Firefox browser, which I happen to like and use a lot. We have Internet Explorer and Safari, the OEM browsers for Windows and the Mac. And of course we have Opera, and there are even more than these. These are just the basic ones. Sometimes difficult fact is that as a website developer, you have to make sure that your content looks okay in all these different browsers. And that's the rub. Now, as you know, all browsers locate a web page by entering a URL into the address field. Quite simple. The web server is set to serve a default page, and that can be index.html, index.php, default HTML, default HTML, default.asp, index.php. There's a lot of different choices. Generally, we set it for index.php with a fallback to index.html. The Microsoft flavors tend to use default HTML because they tend to stick to the 8.3 file quite a bit still. But at any rate, the browser has the default page. In fact, when we install the browser in our course prep, you notice you just did an HTTP localhost, and the browser served up this default page that you see right here. That's a good sign. That means your Apache 2 web server is running. And that is index.html, by the way. The root of the web server on the standard Ubuntu Apache setup is /var/ww. That's the root of the web server. That's where you find this page. You have to refresh install of Apache 2. Now, if you don't have that page there, one of the lab exercises is to remove the test page, or rather rename the test page that we made, so we can see the directory. It makes it easier for us as we develop the course. We just go to our HTTP localhost /tilde and your name. It takes you to that public HTML folder that we made. And that's what we're going to use to learn how to make web pages. Generally, it's a good practice to have a default page there. You don't want people browsing through the root of your web server. That's a security issue. Most website administrators will tend to not allow you to view the root of their web server. But as a developer and working on your own laptop, it's a very handy thing to be able to do, to browse and find the example and reload it in your browser. So we're going to enable that in our public HTML. Now keep in mind that by having the Apache 2 web server, we're actually already a step ahead of where we need to be in preparation for the next course in this series, okay? And we can view pages via HTTP or by opening them as a simple file. There's a difference in how it will work. For this course, it doesn't matter. We get into more advanced courses with server-side scripting and other things going on. We want to open it using the HTTP protocol. And in reality, that's the way the world will view your web page. So we want to make sure that you're getting used to using these tools as you learn to develop web pages. So that's why we go through these rudiments here and set up this public HTML folder on our workstation, which, remember, we can use even if we're disconnected from the internet. We can still do HTTP localhost/tilde and work on a web page. Now, in the first lab exercise for Chapter 3, we made an index HTML and saved it in our public HTML folder. We did that actually in the course prep. In this exercise, we're going to rename that file so it exposes our directory to our web server that's running in the public HTML root. This way it'll be easy for us to browse to and locate our coursings as we create them later on in the course. In the second lab exercise, we actually begin to create the directory structure that we're going to use. We have one section on linking pages in different folders, and at first it may seem a little tricky. In fact, we rerun you through the path stuff. We covered that in the Ubuntu Basics course. We revisit that just a little bit in one of the chapters here, just to make sure you understand, because we use the dot and the dot and the / to navigate up and down through the structure of the web server, through the directory structure of the web server. Now, Firefox browser is pretty rich in features. One of them is the ability to save bookmarks, and it's a good idea. What I usually do is I tell students, bookmark that public HTML root. Bing, you just go there really quick. It's easy to get to see your examples and to work on them. You'd be surprised saving a few clicks along the way saves thousands of clicks over a lifetime. Another handy feature of the Firefox browser is the ability to view the source of a web page. Now, Firefox isn't the only browser that does this. Pretty much they all do. But one thing we're going to do later on in this course, link the Firefox with the Emacs editor, so when we do view source, we're actually opening it in the Emacs editor and we can edit it. That saves us some time. But we want to make sure you understand all the features of Firefox as a developer. Many of them can save you a lot of time as you're developing a web page. We have the redo, which redoes the command we just did. We have cut, copy, and paste, delete, select all, find. These are typical things. If you're familiar with Office or any other application, some of these are very common features, but they also work for us in the browser. We can open a new window or a new tab. Open a location brings up the URL window. We can open by file. Remember, we just mentioned that. You can open your example by file or open it as a URL using HTTP /localhost/tilde your name. We can also save a page. Many times, a friend of mine, obviously a very good developer, told me he taught himself a lot of HTML by going to popular sites, saving the page, and then just studying the code. You'd be surprised how much you can find that way. We can send a link via email. The browser is set to interact with your email usually, so if you click on a mail link, which we'll learn about coming up in another chapter, it will actually open your mail application and put that address in the send to field for you. We can print the page. We can tell it to we're working offline. We can quit Firefox here. I'm just going through all the Firefox menus, and we do that in detail in this chapter, so I'm not going to detail it here. I'm expecting you will be reading the course materials. On the view, we can open and close toolbars. Sometimes you get so many toolbars open you can't see you have such a small area left to view the page. You may want to close some toolbars. There's some very helpful tools in some of those toolbars as a developer that we'll learn coming up in this course. Now, one important thing we do in this chapter is we want to make sure your browser is set and it has the Java plugin running You're going to need that, not for this course, but in future courses, and you should have it anyway. So we run you through some detailed steps on how to do that. And also the Flash player. So we're going to show you how to install both those plugins as part of this chapter. That way your browser is complete and you're ready to view any kind of need to view. Now there's different types of add-ons for the Firefox browser, and we should know the subtle differences between them. There's extensions, there's themes, there's plugins. An extension adds new functionality to the browser, not necessarily part of the browser, an extra piece of software the browser can make a call to and use. Themes are for the appearance of the browser. That you can tailor pretty much any way you like. Plugins, which we're concentrating on in this chapter, the Java Runtime plugin, as well as the Flash Player plugin, can be very important. Most of the plugins today have to do with multimedia stuff. The browser has become such a heavy-duty multimedia player, we just can't ignore it. Now, bookmarking is very cool, and I use it a lot. You'll use it a lot as you work in this course. You find other information, you browse the internet, you find something important, you can bookmark that page. You can organize your bookmarks in different folders to group them logically. It's very handy. And what you can do with Firefox is you can use Firefox Sync. Now, I'm not covering that now, but I will be covering that soon. I'll do a little presentation on Firefox Sync, where you can sync the bookmarks between browsers on different machines that you use. So when you save a bookmark in one browser and go to a different workstation, I have it. Sometimes I'll go to by my Android Pad or something. I have all my bookmarks there that I left on my workstation. It's very handy, good time-saving tool. Now here we show you, and we show you this in the details of the lab exercise. On the left is a browser that does not have the Flash installed. On the right is a browser that does have the Flash installed. And especially if you're going to be using the Open Meeting, which we're in right now, you have to have Flash working. Otherwise, Open Meeting will not work. I always say, the good news is it's Flash. The bad news is it's Flash. HTML5 is slowly easing us out of Flash, but not yet. So we can do about plugins, about : plugins. If we enter that in our URL address bar, it will show us all the plugins that are currently installed in the browser. A very handy, quick tool to check, especially if you happen to be helping a friend with their browser. So, in Chapter 3, we want you to spend time looking at the details and learning many features of the Firefox browser, because you'll be using many of these as a developer to help you create web pages. We hope that you've enjoyed this presentation and that you'll be able to gather all this material together as you take this chapter of the course. Be sure to do all the lab assignments and all the homework assignments. That's how you learn, is with hands-on. And that's what we encourage you to do.
Portions of this program were pre-recorded.